we have assholes like this guy, the mayor of Miami, saying bomb a Cuba, an option that needs to be discussed. Like, this is how they start implanting these ideas in people's heads to manufacture consent for intervention, like physical intervention, like what we saw in those pictures of what happened in the Middle East. Miami Mayor Francis Suarez said the U.S. should consider bombing Cuba as part of its response to recent citizen uprising against the country's government, right? Because we want to help the citizens so much that we want to bomb them. It's absolutely ridiculous. In a Tuesday interview with Fox News, Suarez noted a brief history of U.S. involvement in overturning foreign leaders. His history mentioned the U.S. airstrikes in Kosovo during its 1999 humanitarian crisis. Are you suggesting airstrikes in Cuba? Fox News' Martha McCollum asked Suarez. What I'm suggesting is that that option is one that has to be explored and cannot be just simply discarded as an option that is not on the table, Suarez answered. And there's a variety of ways the military can do it, but that's something that needs to be discussed and needs to be looked at as a potential option in addition to a variety of other options that can be discussed.
The Gusanos, the right wing, the U.S. has been doing these sort of thing for ever since the Cuban Revolution began. We have to keep in mind, looking back at history, two key events. One of them is April 1961, the Bay of Pigs invasion, the failed landing operation in Cuba with Cuban exiles armed and trained by the U.S. Eisenhower allocated $13.1 million to the CIA to train these right-wing fascists to invade Cuba. And they were unsuccessful. They ultimately failed because of the resistance of the Cuban people. But you're talking about 1,400 Cuban paramilitaries, 5 infantry battalions who were dispatched from Guatemala and Nicaragua, which were run by U.S. puppet states in 1961 at the time. The CIA supplied 8 B-26 bombers, right, bomber planes that attacked Cuban airfields. So they already did that, right, in 1961. The other major event to keep in mind is 1962, Operation Northwoods, proposed false flag operation against U.S. citizens. This is where it gets crazy. That basically started as a plan within the Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the U.S. It called for the CIA and the U.S. government arming and training people disguised as Cubans and the Cuban government to commit acts of terrorism against U.S. military and civilian targets, and then blame it on the Cuban government and use it as a excuse to justify a war against Cuba. And this is where this idea, this concept of false flag attacks comes from, where back in the day, what they would do during the Spanish Armada, especially during the war between the Spanish and the English, when the ships would fight each other, is that the British would get close to the Spanish ships, but they would have Spanish flags on their boats to make it seem like they were on the same team, right? And then once they got close enough, they put up the English flag and attacked them. Or conversely, the English would attack the Portuguese and rock Spanish flags. And so the Portuguese would get mad at the Spanish and then blame it on and not the English. And so that's where this idea of the false flag attack comes from, which every liberal is going to be like, oh my God, that's some conspiracy theory. But like, this is documented evidence. Operation Northwoods, look it up, 1962 March, that the U.S. was planning to arm and train terrorists disguised as Cuban agents, disguised as Cuban government people, to kill, to shoot down an airplane, to shoot down. And there's also this crazy lunatic, Luis Posada Carriles, who actually bombed the Cuban airplane, a right-winger who has a monument to him in Miami where all these idiots are protesting, a monument to a terrorist who blew up innocent people, killed innocent people on a Cuban airline, Cubana airline. And so this is things that they've been doing. They created this. They created this idea of bombing and then blaming it on the people they're attacking. So it's some real dark, sinister, evil shit. And again, so important for people to go back into history, read this stuff. It's literally like people are like, oh yeah, what's your source? I'm like CIA.gov. Like they fucking tell you right there, you know? So it's crazy, man. But yeah, those are the two events historically I think people should look into as this Miami mayor is talking about bombing Cuba, is the Bay of Pigs, 1961, and Operation Northwoods, 1962.